Well, President Trump began his White House term cozying up to business executives. Now, with less than 2 weeks left in office and following the attack on Capitol Hill, corporate America's top leaders are largely distancing themselves from Trump. Bloomberg Quick Take reporter Jennifer Zabasaja is here to explain. Jen, good morning. What are we hearing from corporate America on this riot?
Right. So, Tim, really what we're hearing from many of these corporate leaders is overwhelming condemnation for what we saw on Wednesday. Many of them, as you mentioned, started off this administration meeting with Trump, working with Trump. Now they're basically in unison about condemning what we saw on Wednesday without directly mentioning Trump. And I want to point out a few of the notable statements that I found that Bloomberg obtained. So JP Morgan Chase and Co., Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, he said, our elected leaders have a responsibility to call for an end to violence. That's just part of his statement that he put out. We also heard from Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon, who said it is time for the U.S. to begin reinvesting in democracy. And also, very notable, Blackstone Group CEO Steven Schwartzman, who was a very prominent backer of President Trump, met with him a number of times, did not mince words by saying the insurrection that followed the president's remarks today, referring to Wednesday, is appalling and an affront to the democratic values we hold as Americans. So those were just some of the notable statements that we heard. But really, many of them are speaking out, knowing that they cannot be silent during this time. Also, not specifically a person, but on Thursday, we also saw players in the NBA even going so far as to taking a knee during the national anthem, showing their own position following the events of Wednesday. And so, we spoke earlier this week, Tim, about how business leaders were really calling on this president and this administration to commit to a peaceful transfer of power. Now they are taking the next step forward by saying specifically that they do not support what we saw from those pro-Trump mobsters, and also some of them even going so far as to taking even harsher steps to reaffirm their positions on this matter, Tim.
Well, Jen, let's talk some of the platforms here. Facebook, certainly the most prominent one. Facebook, the owner of Instagram. And Facebook saying that this week that it would suspend Trump from its platform for the remainder of the term. What are the other platforms doing?
Right, Tim. So that was Facebook's stance. We did see Twitter reinstate President Trump's account on Thursday after partially suspending him for a few hours. Now, they did say that if he is found to, again, violate their policies, they would reassess putting him back on the platform. But some other notable stances that companies are taking, PayPal and Shopify. Shopify is an online commerce site. They actually shut down one of the accounts that was selling MAGA and Trump merchandise. On PayPal, they actually shut down the account that was funding some of the pro-Trump supporters that were in D.C. on Wednesday. So those were just some of the big platforms that we are seeing take stances. But we could continue to see more companies taking stances, especially as more and more consumers and the public really call out any of these platforms that they see, potentially see to be supporting or, not taking a stance on what they see as an affront to democracy, really, Tim.
Well, Jen, when we think about penalties here, I'm curious what potential penalties or repercussions lawmakers who have been accused of playing a part in inciting these rioters, are they facing any sort of punishment? What could they face?
Some of them are. So let's just start among the lawmakers, right? So we are seeing a number of lawmakers, including Representative Cori Bush being one of many lawmakers who are really calling for some kind of action taken for those lawmakers who were found to potentially play some part, as you mentioned, in inciting some of the violence. One of those in particular is Senator Josh Hawley, who was found to be one of those people who actually supported challenging the results to the election. So lawmakers are calling on some kind of action towards Josh Hawley, also Senator Ted Cruz potentially. But just sticking with Josh Hawley specifically, on Thursday, Simon & Schuster actually put out a statement saying that they were actually canceling a book deal and the publishing of a book that they had planned with Josh Hawley that was set to come out in June. They said it is not going to come out anymore. They are canceling that agreement that they had with the senator. So that is very notable. But, you know, what's also notable is the response from Josh Hawley. He is not backing down. He is not apologizing for any of the actions that he maybe played in inciting what we saw. He said he plans to challenge this action taken by Simon & Schuster. So it doesn't appear that any of these lawmakers are really backing down, so to speak, on their stances. And, you know, this, I think, is really just the beginning of what we're going to see from corporate America as a whole, moving into the next few days of the Trump administration.
I'm not a lawyer, Jen, but it doesn't sound like the senator has much of a case when it comes to losing a book deal. Bloomberg Quick Take reporter Jennifer Zabasaja. Thank you, Jen, as always, for your time.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.